Most people don't think twice about the ocean. They see it as a place for travel, trade, or escape. But for some, it's different. For them, the sight of open water brings discomfort. The depth, the silence, the endless space beneath. This is thalassophobia. Thalassophobia is the fear of large bodies of water, especially those that seem endless, unpredictable, or obscured. The term comes from the Greek thalassa, meaning sea, and phobos, meaning fear. A calm photo of deep water is enough to trigger many people, just knowing how deep it could go, or how fast it can change. When most people picture Earth, they think of landscapes, mountains, forests, cities, deserts, places on land. But land is not the planet, it's only a fragment of it. Just 29% of Earth's surface is land. The remaining 71% of surface is water. That does not take into account the volume of the vast, unbroken, and mostly unknown waters. In earlier eras, during the Precambrian and into the early Paleozoic, that number was even higher. Earth's surface was 85% water. But we don't picture that version of Earth because we don't live in it. This is the Eurasian Pole of Inaccessibility, located in China's Xinjiang region. Is the point on Earth farthest from any ocean, surrounded by over 2,600 kilometers of land in every direction, making it the most landlocked place on the planet. And this is Point Nemo, the most remote location in the ocean, lying over 2,600 kilometers from any land, making it the farthest point on Earth from human civilization. The nearest countries are Pitcairn Islands, which is a UK overseas territory. It is 2,688 kilometers away, which is around the same distance as Chile and Antarctica are away from the island, also around 2,688 kilometers. Although Antarctica is not its own country, but a continent governed by treaty. In the middle of the ocean, there are no landmarks, nothing to think of other than the endless blue. No trees for scale, no buildings to measure against, and only waves that can reach up to 20 meters without warning. Some go higher. These are called rogue waves, unpredictable, spontaneous walls of water capable of tearing metal apart. Ships designed for global travel have vanished in calm seas, never found again. Even on coasts, the destruction doesn't always come from the horizon, it comes from beneath. Tsunamis can move across the open ocean at 800 kilometers per hour, faster than a commercial airplane. In the deep sea, they rise less than a meter high, invisible. But as they approach land and the water shallows, that same energy is compressed. The wave doesn't just grow, it stands up. Entire towns have been erased in under 10 minutes. An example is the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami, which killed over 200,000 people in 14 countries. The flooding drowns homes, infrastructure, and everything in its path. But the real damage often comes after. The saltwater destroys soil, electrical systems corrode, and foundations collapse. Even on the surface, the sea is unforgiving. If you fall off a ship in deep water, you have hours if you're lucky. Just the thought of being out there alone, not being able to see below you in the middle of the ocean is enough to scare almost anyone. There are so many dangers, the cold, dehydration, and panic, to name a few. And sometimes, no one even knows you fell off. No one will rescue you. If the violence of the ocean is physical, its silence is biological. Life in the deep sea isn't built for us. Some organisms live at depths with pressures over 1,000 times what we experience at sea level. Their skeletons are soft, their muscles are gelatinous, and they move very slowly. Their mouths are often very wide, and their bodies stretch in unnatural ways. Not out of malice, but out of necessity. They are Earth's aliens. Some even produce their own light through bioluminescence, not for beauty, but for luring prey. There are fish that survive on chemical vents, others that haven't evolved in millions of years. The Greenland shark can live over 400 years and it swims blind. These are just some examples, and the fact is that this is the majority of Earth's biosphere. The deep ocean is the largest habitat on the planet, and we know almost nothing about it. Thousands of species remain undiscovered. The few we've documented, we've actually found by accident, dragged up by deep-sea trawling or captured on remote-operated cameras built for oil pipelines. Most of the ocean lives and dies without ever being seen. Some scientists believe that there are entire ecosystems based on energy sources we don't fully understand. Places so deep and isolated they operate without influence from the sun, tides, or even the atmosphere. If the entire known history of modern humans, roughly 300,000 years, were compressed into a single day, the first signs of our species would appear just after midnight or 12 a.m. For pretty much the whole day, until our last hour, we do little more than survive, small growth over a long period of time. We would improve mostly in hunting and gathering. Agriculture, the foundation of civilization, wouldn't appear until 11:56 p.m., less than 4 minutes to midnight, and 23 hours and 56 minutes after the start of our day. What about cities, writing, and law? They would appear at 11:58 p.m. The printing press, 11:59 and 30 seconds p.m. What about the Industrial Revolution? 11 hours, 59 minutes, and 50 seconds p.m. And Columbus crossing the Atlantic, a big step in connecting and sadly destroying other civilizations across continents, that wouldn't happen until 11 hours, 59 minutes, and 54 seconds p.m. Everything we call modern, the ships, the maps, the global trade routes, they all arrived in the final seconds of the day. For more than 99% of human existence, the ocean was not a highway, it was pretty much a wall. That's why the fear still lingers. Humans did not have the capacity to sail on it, and those who did rarely came back, up until very recently. The ocean doesn't care if you exist, it doesn't even notice you. That's what makes it terrifying. It's not unnatural like many other fears, but it's because it's one of the most natural things on Earth. Thalassophobia isn't limited to waves, drowning, or shark attacks. It's about the structure of the mind when it encounters what it cannot recognize. In psychology, fear is generally split into two types: conditioned, learned through experience, and unconditioned, innate or hardwired. Thalassophobia sits somewhere in between. It doesn't always arise from trauma. In fact, most who feel it have never been in serious danger in the ocean, but they still react. This suggests an evolutionary basis, an innate fear linked to environmental cues. A 2017 study published in Frontiers in Psychology explored how evolution shapes fear responses, especially in ambiguous or low visibility settings. The researchers found that environments with poor sensory feedback, like darkness or murky water, consistently triggered elevated activity in the amygdala, the brain's fear center. Our brains are biologically tuned to detect and respond to survival-related threats, even if none are immediately visible. The ocean is an ideal match for this pattern. It restricts visual range. It removes solid ground. It has no predictable boundaries, and it contains a long evolutionary history of real threats, like sharks, jellyfish, deep water, and drowning. It doesn't matter if the threat is likely, the human brain over-prioritizes potential danger in survival-relevant contexts. The psychologist Arondight explains in his studies on fear conditioning, we're built to react first and ask questions later. There's also the role of megalophobia, the fear of large objects, which often overlaps with thalassophobia. A 2020 paper in the Journal of Anxiety Disorders found a strong correlation between megalophobia and depth-based unease, particularly when people viewed submerged megastructures ocean trenches, or images of massive marine creatures, like the ones in the deep sea. The researchers argue this is due to sensory-motor dissonance. The brain can't scale itself in relation to the object. The viewer becomes cognitively small, leading to feelings of helplessness or even depersonalization. The ocean is extremely deep, but our mind responds to it as bottomless. There's no anchor, no exit, and no fixed horizon. In January of 1981, Steven Callahan set out alone from the Canary Islands in a 6.5-meter sailboat called Napoleon Solo. He planned to cross the Atlantic from the Canary Islands and reach Antigua, a part of the island nation Antigua and Barbuda in the Caribbean. The first week went smoothly. Then, during a storm on the 6th night, something struck the hull. Maybe a whale, maybe floating debris, no one really knows. The boat began to flood. There was no time to send a distress call, so he grabbed whatever supplies he could and climbed into a small life raft. That raft became his world, 2 meters wide, half inflated, exposed to the sky. He had no radio, no motor, no way to steer. He was carried by wind and current, southwest across the Atlantic into open water. He drifted alone for 76 days. He survived by collecting rainwater with a solar still and catching fish with makeshift tools. Barnacles grew on the underside of the raft, which attracted fish. Those fish became his only reliable food. When it didn't rain, he went without water. Some days he hallucinated, other days he felt entirely numb. He kept a log. He tried to measure the stars to guess his position. 3 ships passed him in total, but none noticed, even when he shot up a flare. He fought off sharks more than once, using an oar to push them away. The raft started to fall apart by the 3rd week. He patched it up with tape and a fishing line. At night, the sea was pitch black. There were no lights, no horizon, just the sound of water and the creaking of the raft. By day 40, his skin had blistered from sun exposure. Salt sores opened in his body. He had nearly lost 1/3 of his weight. By day 60, he had no sense of time anymore. His body was still alive, but most of the time he wasn't sure if his mind was. Eventually, on day 76, he drifted close enough to the Bahamas that fishermen spotted him. He didn't wave. He couldn't do anything really. They pulled him from the water onto land, which he hadn't seen in over 2 months. Thalassophobia isn't just the fear of water. It's the fear of water you can't see it, you can't predict, and can't explain. It's about the realization that we're surrounded by it. We've crossed it, mapped parts of it, sailed across it for trade, war, and discovery, but most of it remains untouched. Not because we haven't tried, but because we can't. The ocean is too deep, too wide, and too unstructured. For the most part, the ocean is pressure, cold, silence, and mystery. The fear of the dark fades when you turn the lights on, but in the ocean you can't do that. And although Callahan's story is rare, the feeling he describes, that the sea didn't care whether he lived or died, is not.